After experiencing what I consider one of the greatest re-editions of a TV show in a video game with South Park Stick of Truth, once it was announced that we was going to get a sequel in Fractured But Whole, I was in great anticipation for this title to drop. Like majority of the games that I own, I did grab this game on launch but only recently got around to playing the game and finishing it, and after multiple delays, was the wait well worth it, and did it live up to the standards of the Stick of Truth? Well, let's keep it locked, as I'm definitely going to look at 5 things I pretty much didn't like about the game, and will give my final verdict towards the end.
Number 1.
Now, for those who don't know, Fractured But Whole has been pushed back a number of times prior to its launch, as the developers was aiming for perfection, and whilst there are great attention to detail throughout the game, there are just some areas which should have been addressed when considering the delay in release. I have come across a few glitches where the game has literally frozen during gameplay, and I've kind of had to restart a mission a few times. Thank the Lord there is an autosave feature, which doesn't mean you have to potentially redo 30 minutes of gameplay since your last play, but at the same time it still is a little bit of an inconvenience. I also do find small things to be a little weird, such as turning off a TV whilst people are watching it in the game and then they don't actually say anything. Obviously things like that isn't really a deal breaker, but at the same time I kind of was expecting a full polished game considering the delays that we did experience.
Number 2.
Trust me, I'm not gonna lie, Fractured But Whole is jam-packed with side quests to keep the game going for a while, and I suppose side quests in any games are not the essential part of a game, but more like a nice addition to keep the longevity of the game going. But with that being said, I did find that in this game there were a few filler side quests that in a sense felt more as if they were just put there in order to increase the length of the game, rather than actually felt that they were there in order to keep the excitement of the gameplay going. It got to a point where I did kind of get a little fed up of doing some of the side quests, as they didn't really feel that they added much value to the overall experience of the game.
I understand others' attention must be scary for you. You know what else is scary?
Number 3.
As a South Park fan and someone who kind of enjoys story in most video games, the first few hours in the Fractured But Whole did keep me content and felt that the story was pretty cool at first, but as the game progressed, there was periods throughout where the story started to feel a little bit uninspired and not as engaging as I would have loved it to be. The story still overall is pretty entertaining and certainly not the worst that I've seen in any video game, but at the same time it felt like it could have just been a little bit more concise to keep the engagement high. Even when I got to the end of the game, I was like, I didn't really feel as if the story ever reached the heights that you kind of thought it would reach. But as I said, the story is still pretty decent, so don't make me put you off it, but at the same time, I personally just had a little bit more high expectations.
Freedom Pals find her before we do, they'll get the $100 reward.
Number 4.
To me, South Park Stick of Truth was such an hilarious game where during my first playthrough I was literally in stitches by the end of the game. I don't know if it's a fact that whether Fractured But Whole has kind of been toned down a little, or maybe my sense of humor has died down since originally playing the Stick of Truth. But whilst I did chuckle at moments throughout the game, I didn't really find it over the top hilarious as I was kind of expecting. There were times where I was just asking myself, was that supposed to be funny? Obviously there are going to be laugh out loud moments, don't get me wrong, but I just felt that if you did compare it with the likes of Stick of Truth, it just felt that the jokes were okay rather than fully hilarious throughout the game.
Fuck your mom. And from then on you had to live with the fact that because you were busy helping a baby, you couldn't stop your mom from being fucked by your dad.
Number 5.
Now, first thing first, I do love the strategic approach that the developers took when constructing the combat in Fractured But Whole. The grid system is something that I grew to love, and love the choices of moves to use as you take out your opponents. And I do know that this game isn't by any stretch a hardcore RPG game like the likes of Final Fantasy or Persona 5 or whatever, and maybe I'm not really playing it on the hardest difficulty. But in most combats that I encountered, there was rarely any time that I felt that there was a major challenge, or whether I felt like I had to really use my initiative to outsmart the enemy, and I still always came out victorious. I just assumed, considering how much strategic depth that they did apply to this game, that it would probably be a little bit more challenging. There will be probably a couple of times throughout the game where you may get frustrated at some battles, so I'm not saying every single encounter is easy, but I just felt like overall, to me, sometimes the combat was not as challenging as kind of maybe what I would have expected from a game like this.
Oh my god! No, Crux is alive with her massive...
Final verdict.
Yo, overall I will say that South Park Fractured But Whole is a pretty cool game. Visually the game looks epic, the game is jam-packed with content that will certainly keep you occupied for hours, and the battle system is super fun. I will say though, as someone who loves South Park The Stick of Truth, I just feel that the Fractured But Whole didn't really take the series to the next level and kind of just felt like a cool game, but didn't really have the same effect or impact as the first entry. Fractured But Whole does improve on Stick of Truth in loads of different areas, such as the combat, the visuals, and more areas to explore that doesn't make you feel a little bit like you're playing a linear game. But overall the experience to me just kind of missed the mark a little bit. Do I recommend the game? Well, if you're a South Park fan and enjoy RPG games with elements of humor, then I would certainly say this is a must pick up game. But if you're not really a fan of the RPG genre and not really into South Park that much and got a crazy backlog of games to get through, then I wouldn't really say that this is an essential game to put on your priority list. But I still do feel that this game should be a consideration for a future purchase, as it is still a great game and will certainly give you a good laugh. Whether you're into South Park or whether you're into RPGs or whatever, you still probably will find some elements of gold in this game. Anyway peeps, do let me know if you had the chance to play South Park The Fractured But Whole yet, and what do you make about the game. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and until next urban gameplay video, we definitely say peace out peeps.
Your franchise is going nowhere. Face the truth, Eric. You guys are kind of douchebags.
He just called us douchebags in my mind.
He did?
Alright, you son of a bitch!
Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for more cool urban gameplay videos.